Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our first webinar of the year. Today's topic is best practices for remote teams. So we'd like to introduce ourselves. For those of you not familiar with us, Project Insight has been helping teams work better together for over 15 years. As we like to say, project management is dead, and we're reinventing it. Our project management software was named Best Project Management Solution at the 2017 SIA Coyote Awards, and we were recently featured in Inc. magazine. We're the first project management solution that grows with your team, offering free solutions all the way up to enterprise. Your team never has to outgrow a project management system again. Instead, you can upgrade as your business matures. And with that said, my name is Alexa, and I'll be your moderator for today. I'm on the marketing team here at PI, and if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to reach out to me at alexa.ortega-mendoza@projectinsight.com. Our presenters for today are Denise and Kevin, our remote team and Slack experts. And on today's agenda, we'll go over best practices to increase remote team organization, engagement, and communication. So we've broken this down for you according to process, tools, and implementation. So some of the benefits of today's webinar include learning better ways to foster team communication and engagement, understanding the resources that keep us on task, but the challenge of having too many, and lastly, PI's solution to these remote work challenges. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn this over to our remote team experts. Welcome, Denise and Kevin.
Thank you, Alexa.
Hello, and thank you for that.
Great, good to have you.
All right, so I'll just jump right in, and we'll start by saying that most professionals have noticed the traditional 9-to-5 landscape is changing. If you didn't know, hello, welcome to the new age of new companies. So more companies are now offering flexible schedules and are embracing the concept of remote work. So teams are no longer just in the office, and there's a lot of typical changes that are coming up with communications and a lot of organizations that are being affected by either the lack of productivity or even project delivery. So here at PI, we've come up with a solution to help remote teams work better together, because that is our tagline. That's what we have always been saying. So before we dive right in, I'd like to go over some quick stats here. So according to a report conducted by the Gallup State of American Workplace, there's 43% of Americans reported working from home in 2016. And then we have a 68% of job seekers that an option to work remotely would increase their interest in taking a job with a specific employer. And lastly, those who spent 3 to 4 days working remotely reported feeling more engaged at work, according to a report from the New York Times. So I'm assuming this is no longer just a millennial issue, right? I think that, this whole stigma of the work ethic and, what we used to know, and I mean, Kevin, maybe you can eventually, just hop in here and chime in, and let's talk about one of our first issues with organizations and teams who are working remotely. The biggest problem they have, communication. So how do you go about setting expectations, keeping your team engaged? Email for internal use is dead. I mean, I know as marketing, that's been a concept that's been used for a very long time, but in reality, how many teams and companies are still using email to communicate? How truly effective is that? And of course, project management, how do you make sure that your teams are on time, on track, that they are being effective, and that they are delivering at the end of the day? So, Kevin, you that you're on the other side, and you have managed multiple teams remotely and within the office. Like, what's your take on this, or at least what's your experience?
Yeah, I think nowadays, especially working remotely has to be woven into the fabric of any company, whether they're making widgets, out of your garage, or if you're making, parts for the space shuttle. I think there's going to be this need for people to connect and communicate, files and status and a whole variety of things, and not just during business hours too. So making sure that, companies are hiring the right people to be able to work flexibly, and that doesn't necessarily mean just being flexible as in you're working at home, but being flexible to the demands that, working remotely sort of entails, is really important. And that's part of the bigger picture, I think, from a stakeholder's perspective, is understanding that vision is about, not just being a 8 to 5er with your hour break or whatever, that, you've got responsibilities, things have to get done, and deadlines. And so part of this remote, in my opinion, part of this remote culture is people being responsive to, the ever-changing landscape of what business is nowadays. So I think the process and communication is really integral for the whole thing.
Hey, Kev, if I could just interject here, what are some things that you use in your day-to-day to keep your team engaged, or do you use check-ins, or how do you go about that process?
So what I've discovered over the years is that a daily check-in is paramount, really, for the stability of any team. And check-ins don't have to be this grandiose, sort of history recital of what I did the day before, what I'm going to do tomorrow, whatever. A lot of times it's just like saying, hey, I have nothing blocking me right now. And if I have this expectation that everyone's, on the same page and there's no blocks, then as a stakeholder, I know that things are going to move smoothly and we can kind of move past that. And it's important to be available for the daily check-ins. A lot of times people do stand-ups, like physical stand-ups in a circle and somewhere in the office or whatever. Other companies are using tools like Teams or Slack and creating status check-ins that way. I've done both, and they, can be tied to a more formal process like Scrum or some sort of an agile, backdrop. That's also possible too. But I think we're at an age now where it's just easy for people to kind of do that daily check-in, and it's really important.
I agree. I think that one of the things that you said was, the host stand-up, and I think that's the beauty of doing, of having these great apps nowadays, that we're able to still see each other's face. There's webcams now, so there's really nothing standing in the way. I know that in the past, a lot of people said that they had a hard time kind of having that one-on-one approach through, a computer or through, whatever that may be. But now it feels almost like you're in the same room at the same time, and, that way there's really nothing getting in the way of that.
Yeah, totally. And, I think when we look at all the various, project management solutions that are out there, I mean, it's good to have teams thinking, being on a team is also being connected through some sort of a status linkage. So we can talk about our strategy to that, as well in a minute. I mean, if you think about the amount of tools, and maybe we go to the next slide and talk about all that, we have this sort of sea of tools that are out there that help us do this stuff. We've got Google and LastPass and Excel and Project and Remote Desktop and Skype and QuickBooks and yada, yada, yada. And all these things are supposed to make us more efficient, and especially when we're remote, right? Because most of these services are SaaS services, or so we're able to be more productive in one sense, but then you've got this really bifurcated marketplace of of tools. It's like how do you make sense of all of them, and especially when you're on a team, how does that work? You know, how does the CRM entry sync up with the file share on SharePoint to the e-signature on the PDF to the blah blah blah. So it gets to be really kind of crazy, and there's so many solutions out there.
So that's a great scenario that you just brought up, because even with all these apps and solutions, people kind of, adopt a tool and that's where they want to work from, right? So, what do you do when you want to engage your teams to, yeah, they want to, one team member wants to work through, Slack, the other one wants to work through, whatever other platform. How do you find that a challenge, and what's your, I don't know, maybe solution to help integrate all that and bring it all together?
Yeah, my thought process for that is to really just um, sort of let people work where they're at, and I think that's where we as a company, as PI, have sort of evolved ourselves in this last year to understanding what the difference is between having a project management solution that's what we call monolithic. It's all encompassing and it does everything, including making your coffee in the morning. You know, that those kinds of apps are not realistic to small companies because they don't have the manpower to train and to teach people about, you know, formal project management solutions. And at the same time, on the other side of the coin, if you have a big enterprise company with thousands of people, just the implementation and the training and the rollout for something like that, even with professional trainers, can be very cumbersome. And when you really kind of pull back the layers there, you really, you know, this person needs just this one aspect of project management, and this person needs that aspect of project management. And so teaching them all this other stuff is sort of a waste. So our philosophy, if we just go to the next slide, is I think we have this idea now where we've solved this problem where we want to just let folks work where they're at, you know, whatever app they're in. So in doing that, there's really some key fundamentals. One is just keep things very simple. So on the project management side, we've really, not to say dumbed down, but we've really simplified and curated what is really most important to people into certain views on the task data. And then we connect to everything else outside of that. So for instance, we have connectors for QuickBooks and Salesforce and Visual Studio and everything else. And if you just take those three things right there, you have accounting, you have sales, and you have programming. Now, it's not realistic, in my opinion, Denise, you can chime in too if you like, but to teach all those people the various aspects of what true project management is about is probably unrealistic, don't you think?
And very time consuming.
And very time consuming. So we want developers developing. They want to be writing code. Let's let them write code. We want salespeople to sell. We want finance people to work on the accounts and stuff. So there's really no reason to force those people not only to just enter the information in their are comfortable and already working in, but then they have to double entry data that into the project system just so that stakeholders can get a overview of the data and be comfortable about what's prioritized and what's costing and so on and so forth. So one of the key examples we have recently is of this is our virtual PM for Slack connector. And Denise, you can talk a little about this too, but I think this is probably one of the crown achievements that we've done in this last year, would you say, that allows taking this to the next level, like where letting people work where they're at?
I would say this is a lifesaver. Lifesaver. It's on my phone. I never have to log into an app. I mean, I have Slack on the go. So everything that I need to know, whatever I'm working on, any updates that I need to, make wherever, whether I'm in the office or not, I have access to that, and everybody else, my team members, my team, whoever's working on the same project, I mean, they're updated, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
this is one of my favorite things. And I mean, not to brag or anything, but I am a little bit. It's really different than your typical bot, and you know, we have found a way to make it fun and engaging. I mean, I think that we've talked a little bit about this in the past, and maybe some of our listeners have already, you know, tried virtual PM. But these awesome little virtual PMs, they interact with you in a very their own way. They each have their own personality, which always makes it really fun. So just pick your favorite character and you go from there.
Yeah. So not only is it super engaging, but and then it gives you kind of a reason to check out what's happening and not just be another message in your queue of messages. But we also have the ability for you to work in updating your project information directly from Slack. So when we push a message to you, so when the project manager pushes a task to you or assigns you a task or has some other facet within the system that you've been assigned to, it gets a message to you in Slack, and then depending on what that is, you can say, I want to update my time, or I want to change my status, and you can click a button or two, and basically you never have to leave Slack to do that, and you can still be working in whatever silo environment that you want to be working in, and it automatically updates it for the PM. So it not only facilitates your life, it also helps out the PM dramatically. Their job no longer is 85% of the time running around culling status updates from everybody. It's more about strategy and planning and doing the stuff that most project managers really would like to think they spend most of their time on. So it's a really good tool that we recommend people trying out. And in fact, you can get to Slack from our website. You can install it with PI Team, or you can, if you already have Project Insight, you can also install directly from the Slack directory. Just a heads up for people who might be interested in that.
Hey, Kev, I have a quick question. So, is the virtual PM for Slack available on all three of Project Insight's platforms?
Yes, that's a great question. So originally we were thinking that the virtual PM would just be kind of an enterprise-based tool, but actually we've opened it up now to our small business edition and the PI team, which is the freemium version of our product. So you can use, if you have Slack and you want just a basic, free project management tool, you can sign up for PI Team, install the add-on, and you're ready to go.
Awesome.
The best part is that virtual PM is free, so you can just, you know, do it from any of our platforms, which is pretty great.
So I think the other appeal of Slack as well, for those of you who aren't using it yet, is you can easily integrate PI with Slack, and Slack has the option to integrate with Google Drive, any other tools that you're using. So you can truly work where you're at with this tool, with PI and virtual and Slack as well.
We have a few of those tools built into PI as well. So regardless if you're in PI or Slack, we've got you covered. So anyway, it's exciting stuff, and we're really looking forward to the betterment of virtual PM. This is version 1. Versions coming up are going to be even more attuned to the employees, how they react, what they're saying, and so forth, to really help out project managers, not replace them, but help them out and really show what true artificial intelligence can do for an organization.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of buzz around virtual PM, and artificial intelligence and how it's like taking over people's jobs. Well, this is not what your virtual PMs here are doing. They're really just an asset. They're helping you get rid of the busy work. They're kind of helping your team get engaged and kind of work better together without the hassle of having to run around for updates or, who's doing what and who's working under what platform. So just to clarify.
Awesome. Project visibility and automation is definitely the future, and Project Insight's working hard to innovate and bring teams of all sizes and budgets this software. So I'd like to give a big thank you to Denise and Kevin for hosting today, for presenting. And I'm going to
Thank
go.
you.
I have just a few more slides for all of you tuning in today. We'd like to invite you to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media channels. You can also find us on all social platforms, including Facebook and Twitter, at Project Insight. And in our Project Insight community, you'll be able to sign up for your next on-demand webinar or watch videos from our robust archive. You can also sign up for a free trial of our software or get more information by clicking the Request Demo button or exploring our website. And that's all we have for you today. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we hope you'll tune in for next month's webinar. Have a great day, everyone.